Welcome back to Rob Schmitt tonight. Last night on CNN, Don Lemon pushed a royal scholar named Hilary Fordwich to join him in lending credence to the reparations narrative that we've been hearing about the royal family, that the royal family should distribute some of its billions of dollars in wealth to descendants of slaves and people who are living in former royal colonies. Now, of course, it's CNN and it's a race issue, so Don Lemon expected full capitulation from his guest, which is what everybody expects on issues like this. It didn't work out that way. Take a listen.
Which was the first nation in the world that abolished slavery? The first nation in the world to abolish it. It was started by William Wilberforce, was the British. In Great Britain, they abolished slavery. 2,000 naval men died on the high seas trying to stop slavery. Why? Because the African kings were rounding up their own people. They had them on cages waiting in the beaches. No one was running into Africa to get them. And I think you're totally right. If reparations need to be paid, we need to go right back to the beginning of that supply chain and say who was rounding up their own people and having them handcuffed in cages. Absolutely. That's where they should start. And maybe, I don't know, the descendants of those families where they died in the high seas trying to stop the slavery, that those families should receive something too, I think, at the same time.
It's an interesting discussion, Hilary. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So we let that play out because I think it was important to hear the full conversation and the context of it, because it was a pretty powerful moment. And I think you'd agree with that. Hilary Fordwich joins us now. She is a royal commentator and global business analyst. And I want to thank you so much for coming on tonight. I think one of the most important things that a lot of people learn from this clip, which has just gone incredibly viral, is that slavery and reparations, the narrative behind this is not simple at all.
You're absolutely right, Rob. It is an immensely complex, and might I add, sensitive issue, and it actually should be. We are all actually Homo sapiens. Right. This is an issue that should concern us all of mankind. It's something that we should all be thinking about. It's something that we should all be looking into, and maybe we could read about. Someone that reached out to me, a fine young man, and actually we're sort of dear friends, is Rashid Walters. I would like everyone to look up Rashid Walters. He is a fine young man. He is a historian. And one of the many books he recommended for me to read, because he said he was so glad someone had given a voice to this, is about the richest man of all of history. Do you know who he is, Rob? I bet our audience doesn't know.
I don't.
He makes Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos pale due to his wealth. I bet you haven't heard of him, as you say. Most people have never heard of him. Do you know, I had never heard of him. Manu Musa. Do you know who he is? He is an African who sold gold, ivory, salt, and was so involved in the slave trade. Yeah. And it almost makes me cry to say this. He took over 12,000 slaves of his own to the colonies. And what he did, and what he did with gold. I haven't read it yet, but I recommend to all of your readers, all of your watchers, we start reading and we start learning. I am just interested, and I've always been interested, in the whole truth. It's a very complex and a very sensitive issue.
It is. I mean, it's, you know, it was just the other day. I think it was last Friday. Bill Maher's show, it had a very similar clip that he talked about how for the longest time slavery was the rule of the world and not the exception, how everybody, every culture, every land had slaves. I think we actually have it, guys. If we do, let's go ahead and let it play.
Everybody who could afford one had a slave, including people of color. The way people talk about slavery these days, you'd think it was a uniquely American thing that we invented in 1619. But slavery throughout history has been the rule, not the exception. The Sumerians, the Egyptians, the Greeks, Romans, the Arabs, British, the early Americans.
So, you know, I don't know how you see this, but I think that this is, it's a topic that I think is used because it's politically divisive, because I think it's useful for some people to bring it up and to create, you know, and what they're doing is they're creating, you know, a war in society where you've got people that, you know, we're rehashing things that happened hundreds of years ago, I think, for political usefulness for some people who want to bring this up, who want to push some agenda, whatever it might be. And it's gutting the West. I'm sure it's happening in England. It's certainly happening here in the United States, creating all of this hate for no reason whatsoever. And it's so dangerous. And it's so nice to see people realizing it, no matter what your political faction is. We're starting to see that on all. I mean, Bill Maher is a huge liberal. He's obviously had a bit of, he's changed in recent years a little bit, but he's not a Trumper. He's not a right winger. I can tell you that.
No, you're absolutely right. And Rob, a few things on that you're right about, and actually what Bill Maher said. Think about this. Probably, actually, you're a descendant of slaves. Most of our viewers are probably descendant of slaves. Most probably white people are. You know how we know that? Because of what Bill Maher said about the Romans. The Romans built roads all across Europe, colosseums in many European places, towns, cities. Who do you think built those? They would invade and they took local slaves. That's where most people come from, is Western Europe, if they don't come from the African continent. So we basically really all are. But I think perhaps it would be healthier and better in some ways to focus on what we can do today. 300 years from now, Rob, we will be judged on what we did about slavery. What about what's happening to the people that are actually making these right now?
There you go.
What do you make your phone calls on? Because what's happening to the Uyghurs, right? What's happening to the Uyghurs right now, we should be doing something about. They are wage slaves. They are paid. I think some of them. I actually am not in great amount of depth about what's happening with the Uyghurs, but I do know what's happening, probably at the level that most people know about it. Why aren't we doing more about that? Also, think about those sex slave traffickers. There are people being trafficked right now in this world to be sex slaves. What I urge everyone who feels strongly about slavery to focus their efforts on doing something about people that are doing it now, because now we know how abhorrent it is. I think most decent people, I can speak for myself, think it was something abhorrent. So let's do something about it now.
You're exactly right. And I just want to get, because I think actually the history of it is very interesting, and I know you know a lot about this. The 2000, you said 2,000 sailors lost their lives trying to end slavery for the British Empire. Just tell us a little bit more about that story, because that actually captivated me.
Well, yes, William Wilberforce, I wouldn't say that he was the first in the world, but he was the one that kept going, and he persevered to have a vote. It was actually a vote in Parliament. The abolitionist movement was backed by him, and he took basically the torch. And this was in Great Britain. And obviously, there were many people, obviously, this was a business. And I kind of regretted the other day when I said to Don Lemon about, the beginning of the supply chain, because in some ways that's ghastly and it's making, slaves and people sound like commodities. And on the other hand, I feel, well, they treated them as a commodity. The very people, and by the way, Ghana is a country that is very against paying reparations, because Ghana knows. Since you're interested in history, something else, and I'd rather everybody goes to the actual source than just us quickly on this show, but something else that people should look into, Rob. DNA-wise, on Iceland, you know what they have found? They have found that I think it's 48% of all people on Iceland have Irish blood. Why? Because when the Vikings were rowing west, they left and they suddenly realized they don't have women. And we won't go into any more details about that, why they wanted women. But they picked up slaves in Ireland that were Irish women and took them with them to Iceland. That's why almost 50% of people are there. So I think historically, we should be looking into these things if we want to learn more about slavery, as Bill Maher was absolutely correct. And also the pyramids. Yeah. That's how the pyramids were primarily constructed.
Well, everybody freaked out about the Bill Maher soundbite. Yours was better because yours took a tremendous amount of guts. You were there on the spot, in the moment. You got asked a question that most people get paralyzed with fear about, because nobody wants to even touch a race issue, because it's the third rail that nobody can touch. Actually. And you were probably, and maybe you were trembling as you said it, but you had the guts to say it. 99.9% of the people would have just capitulated to that argument and said, oh yeah, white people are so terrible, we should be doing reparations, and that would have been the end of it. You didn't do that, and that's why it was so special. And Hilary, I want to thank you so much for coming on tonight and telling us that story.
Absolutely.
Good to see you.